Hey everyone, hope you had a good Thanksgiving, and today I want to share the absolute best hand-picked Black Friday deals from Amazon for the wireless noise canceling headphones and earbuds. Now, if we just look at this roundup here, you'll see some cool deals. Like ones I want to point out are going to be something like the Samsung Galaxy Buds 3 Pro, which I actually think for Android users is a fantastic earbud that I think is better than the AirPods Pro 2 in every way. One special deal is the Google Pixel Buds Pro 2, which is very competitive with the Samsung, and this is for just $133, which is one of the best deals I've seen. But if you just keep scrolling down on this page, there's actually a ton of deals that I've handpicked specifically in the wireless headphone and earbud category that I'm going to walk through one by one, and these are going to be highly rated products from recordingnow.com. Now, I'm going to link a blog post in the description below that's going to have updated deals with dynamic pricing that's going to be up to date, so I highly suggest you check that out depending on whenever you watch this video, because the prices may have changed by then. There are some absolute steals today that I think are must buys, but before we dive into that, I want to take a quick moment to thank this video sponsor, Soundpeats, who is kind enough to send over their flagship H3 wireless earbuds. Now, I actually received a ton of comments on my best wireless earbuds video recommending the Soundpeats H3. I even had one comment that said they listen to these sometimes in place of their $1,000 plus IEMs. So taking these out of the box for the first time, you can see that these are an absolute gorgeous pair of wireless earbuds. If you look at this beautiful design, this actually resembles more of those high-end IEMs. Alright, so my initial listening impressions of these is, first off, the noise canceling seems quite solid. Now for the sound quality, the number one word I would use to describe these is crisp. The treble is nicely detailed and tons of airiness, producing a very exciting sound profile. I'm really impressed with these, and I absolutely need to conduct a full review to do them justice. If you want to check out the Soundpeats H3, I'm going to have links in the description. Again, there is currently a Black Friday sale on these. They're currently going for less than $110, which is an incredible value for this level of earbuds. All right, so starting with the deals, yes, the Soundpeats H3, I had a very, very strong first impression of them. And honestly, I can't believe for this price, under $110, and that's before even applying this 5% coupon, the kind of value that you'll be getting in these earbuds. I wish I had tested these prior to making my top 10 best wireless earbuds. I'd probably have to redo that list in the near future. Now, before I dive into some of these headphone deals, I do want to give a shout out to this Q-Style QCC Dongle Pro. This is going to unlock LDAC and aptX lossless and aptX adaptive to your device, especially if you have something like an iPhone that's not going to really have that support for LDAC, for example. I mean, most phones don't actually support these super high-end codecs. So if you want to get the most sound quality possible out of your premium wireless over-ear headphones or your wireless earbuds, then check out something like this. You also have the Sennheiser BTD 600 and 700. 700 goes up to aptX lossless, but the 600 should be sufficient for aptX adaptive for something like the Momentum 4 or even the HDB 630. All right, so speaking of Sennheiser, I have to show you this absolute doorbuster deal. The Sennheiser Momentum 4 for just $179.95 easily. I think this is the best must-have deal today. If you watch our previous video on the best headphone awards of 2025, one of the best values is going to be the Sennheiser Momentum 4. In that video, I suggested that you go pick up something like a dongle, whether that be from Q-Style, or you can save some money, just get the Sennheiser BTD 600. You're going to unlock aptX adaptive, throw on some custom EQ like I have on recordingnow.com, and simply enjoy probably the best wireless listening experience for the money. Now, it's important to note that this $179 price seems to only be for the copper and black colorway, whereas the regular one that I have is actually just under $200, which I still think is an amazing steal. But I'm specifically going to link the cheaper colorway because this is the best value today by far. Now, if you're on more of a budget, I actually do like the Sennheiser Accentum, especially when you add in that custom EQ that I have as well to get it a little bit closer to the Momentum 4. For under $100, this is one of the best sound quality you can find. All right, so moving on to some of the more popular over-ear noise canceling headphones. The XM6 is one of the highest rated for its noise canceling. It's under $400. The list price is actually closer to $460. So if you wanted to buy these headphones, now is a great time. And one of the biggest competitors to the XM6 is going to be that new Quiet Comfort Ultra 2nd Gen, which rated very highly on our website and for that Best Headphones Award. This is going to be under $400 off that list price of $449, so save about $50. Now is the time to get them if you're interested. Now, one of my favorites from Bose is also going to be the Bose Quiet Comfort Regular. So for under $200, you're getting a headphone that shares so much DNA in terms of its noise canceling performance and has pretty good sound quality after you apply a little bit of EQ as the more expensive QC Ultra. It's a little bit lighter than the QC Ultra, and I find these to be a very comfortable headphone, though I do prefer the Ultra for being more plush. That said, the colorways are awesome and very stylish on the regular Quiet Comfort. Now, a couple more Bose deals I want to share is going to be the first generation QC Ultra, which is roughly 90% of the 2nd gen, but this is going to be $100 off. It's just under $300, and this is a very competitive all-arounder in terms of its comfort, world-class noise canceling performance, and sound quality after you apply EQ. I personally do prefer the 2nd gen, which I think is improved in every single way, but for $100 less, the better value is likely the 1st gen QC Ultra. Next, I also want to bring up the QC Ultra 2nd gen earbuds, which is a very strong performer that I recently tested. Like the QC Ultra headphones, the 2nd gen improves upon the 1st gen, and you can get them for just $216. That's off that $299 retail price. So if you're more of an earbuds person, this is a very strong all-arounder for comfort, fit, noise canceling performance, and sound quality. All right, so bringing up a couple more of my favorite Sony headphones, I really like the Ultwear at under $150, so currently $148. This has noise canceling that's comparable to their more premium Sony XM4, Sony XM5. I personally prefer the sound quality of the Ultwear over the XM4, but I do like the build quality of the XM4, whereas the Ultwear is made of a ton of plastic. They do feel pretty cheap, I will say. So speaking of the Sony XM4, these are getting harder to find brand new because I believe they are discontinued, but I will have links to where you can access them renewed for $159.99. I think that is a great deal if you're more of a noise canceling person. Personally, I think there are a lot of options that are better for sound quality, but a lot of people love this headphone and for good reason. So for the right price, I do still recommend the XM4. And one of my other favorite Sonys under $100 is the WH-CH720N for $88. This is an absolute deal for probably my favorite headphone under $100. If you watch my best budget headphones under $200 video, you'll see that the 720N receives a lot of good awards, and it's really hard to beat for this price other than probably the JBL Tune 770NC. So speaking of the Tune 770, these are available for just under $80, and they actually do have better sound quality and noise canceling than the Sonys. That said, it's the comfort for me that makes these a little bit harder to recommend. They have a ton of clamping force. Their ear cups are pretty small, so I just find the Sonys to be so much more comfortable. That said, in terms of value, for under $80, the JBL Tune 770NC is probably the best mix of sound quality, especially if you apply my custom EQ and that noise canceling performance for the money. All right, so moving on to the Apple users, the AirPods Max USB-C, the latest version, is under $400, and this is one of the cheapest prices I have seen for the brand new USB-C AirPods Max. I have this pair in midnight, which is beautiful. Honestly, if we're talking about the build quality, the premium materials, the noise canceling performance, which is elite, I personally find the sound quality to be very decent and nicely tuned. My only gripe with the AirPods Max really was more so that $549 retail price and the fact that they're a bit heavy, but those things aside, and the 20-hour battery life, which is probably the lowest I've tested in the premium class, if you're an Apple user, the convenience cannot be beat for $400 in my opinion. Now, if you want an even better value as an Apple user, the Beats Studio Pro for under $150 is on paper 90% of the same features as the AirPods Max. It is an Apple product. It actually has double the battery life of the AirPods Max. That said, I prefer the AirPods Max in pretty much every single way. But in terms of pure dollar value, the Beats Studio Pro, you can do so much worse for $150. All right, now speaking of value, we move on to the Cambridge Audio P100 SE, available for under $250. This is one of the best sounding wireless over-ear noise canceling headphones, period. Regardless of price, it competes with headphones costing $2,000, 3, even 4 times as much. I'm looking specifically at the Bang & Olufsen Bay of Play H95, which is actually on sale right now for $875, but the list price is $1,250. The P100 definitely competes with a headphone of this price. I find the P100 to have pretty decent noise canceling as well, and it has this 100-hour user replaceable battery and battery life. In addition, they have very solid build quality. For this price, it competes with headphones that cost twice as much. I can't say enough good things about the P100. It's between this and the Momentum 4 as the best dollar values right now. Okay, so moving on to one of my favorite headphones for sound quality, the Focal Batiste, for $476.42 as part of a special limited edition Black Friday deal. I cannot recommend the Batiste enough. The gripes with the Batiste has more so to do with it as a product in terms of being a bit uncomfortable, and its noise canceling performance is not that competitive. But if we're just talking about pure wireless sound quality or listening to them in wired USB DAC mode, the Batiste is in my top 3 for favorite headphones to listen to right now. Now, I want to give a quick shout out to the earbuds. This was one of the winners of our top 10 best earbuds for 2025. We're talking about the Technics AZ100. These are typically closer to $300, but the Black Friday deal has them at just under $223, which I think is a fantastic value. These are probably my favorite wireless earbud to listen to right now, and with the current sale, I think that these are a great value. Now, moving on to the Sonos Ace for $279, this is actually a very excellent product when we're talking about the noise canceling performance, which I think is elite. It's one of the best in the class. I think the design, the build quality with the stainless steel hinges is beautiful. They feel great in the hand. My only gripe with the Ace personally is I don't love the sound quality, but that is just my preference, and that sound quality is in relation to the full retail price closer to $400, but at $279, it's a whole different ballgame. I do recommend the Sonos Ace. All right, so another headphone that made a splash this year is the Nothing Headphone 1, which is on sale for just $239. This was already a great value at that $300 retail price, but at just $239, this is easily one of the best values, probably right behind the Momentum 4 and the P100. Now, I did receive some comments on my Best Headphone Awards video that there was some kind of firmware update that actually degraded the sound quality or reduced the bass or something of the Nothing Headphone 1. So I might have to perform the firmware update and do a retest, and I have to fix my EQ settings. That would explain why my EQ all of a sudden sounds pretty bad with the Headphone 1, but I'll spend some time to update the firmware and give them another try and update the scores accordingly. All right, so a few others I want to point out are the Marshall Monitor 3 for $280 as part of a Black Friday deal. This is one of the elite comfort headphones that I've tested. It says over 100 hours of wireless playtime, so it's got the battery life, it's got the comfort. The build quality is pretty solid despite being so comfortable. And for sound, if you know Marshall, whether it's through rock, playing guitar, listening to metal, Marshall is simply one of the best names in audio as a whole, super legendary. So if you listen to more rock and metal, then the Marshall Monitor 3 is a recommendation. I don't love them as much for the more digital music that has a lot of bass, but these can be EQ'd. I do believe I have an EQ setting to make these a little bit more palatable for pop, hip hop, and the digital music. But this is a great headphone all around. It's really hard to nitpick these, especially for the sale price. All right, so moving on to the Bowers & Wilkins. Unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be a sale on the new PXA S2. It's still $799, really expensive. But there seems to be a little bit of a discount for the PX7 S3. Usually I see this for around that retail price of $479. It's just $429. I did develop a recent EQ for the PX7 S3 to get it a little bit closer to the sound profile of the PXA S2. I think it does a pretty good job personally, and I'm actually pretty happy with how the PX7 S3 is sounding, especially for the money. And another headphone to point out is the original PX8, although the original PX8 is quite polarizing in terms of its sound profile. But if you can find one of the colorways for much less than the $699 retail price, then it starts to become a more enticing value. And rounding out the Bowers & Wilkins, the PX7 S2E is actually one of the better headphones that I have tested, and for $269, this does have one of the best sound quality for the money. It's a very pleasing, warmer sound signature that has pretty good timbre, and I actually prefer the sound profile of the PX7 S2E over the original PX8. So for $269, I do like the S2E a lot. And lastly, we have the JBL Tour 1 M M3 for $380 off that list price of $450. So the JBL Tour 1 M3 is actually one of the few headphones that received an elite perfect comfort score. Its sound quality is absolutely up there. It's not quite in that elite tier, but it is something that I would say sounds a little bit better than something like the Bowers & Wilkins PX7S2E, which I just said some pretty good things about, especially because the JBL has such an advanced EQ. You've got 70 hours of battery life, and you have this smart transmitter feature. My only gripe with the Tour 1 M3 is that I found the noise canceling to be a little bit inconsistent. Maybe it's just slightly above average. It's not in that elite tier. And for a headphone that came out in 2025, I expected a little bit more, to be honest. But everywhere else, the JBL Tour 1 M3 is super competitive. All right, so that wraps up the hand-picked wireless headphone and earbud deals from recordingnow.com. Again, check the full blog post in the video description below. That's going to have updated prices and deals as they come in. If you enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up button, leave a comment below if you need any help making a purchase decision. I try to get back to as many people as possible. Make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell. We have a ton more headphone and earbud content on the way very soon. And shout out again to Soundpeats for sponsoring this video. I'm super excited to do a full deep dive into the H3, which gave me a very strong first impression. Thanks for watching and happy holidays.